sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you, amazing. So, a couple of things here. Okay. So, I want to speak very specifically. I want to thank the alderman. So you got to hear some people from the city, and we out here. We try and do our best. But let me just say this, as we all know, because we're going to be wrapping up here in a minute. So, growing up, walking down the street with my friends, I would act a fool like every other little boy down the street. It wasn't until I got to Mrs. Washington's house. She was on the corner. And, you know, we like to talk like sailors when we're alone. But when we got to Mrs. Washington's house, guess what we did? Stood straight up and was like, "Hey, Mrs. Washington, how are you doing?" I was the best little boy out there. And guess what? Mrs. Washington wasn't the police. Mrs. Washington wasn't the alderman. Mrs. Washington was my neighbor. And guess what? It's the neighbors that make the difference. We have jobs to try to make a difference. That's what we do. But the people who make the difference are the people who volunteer to make a change in the community, to do everything they can support not only their block, but everybody else around them. And and this is probably the one person that we should really pay attention to. Because, first of all, she got drafted. She didn't volunteer tonight, she got drafted. But she did volunteer to work with her neighbor to the left and the right, Roberta. She's also the president of the Block Club of 78th Yates and Ogilvy.